Is Donald Trump a neocon? Are there people around him who are neocons? Or has he secretly been planning to go to war since he ran for president? Why is Iran coming up now? Seems like every few years, oh, they're gonna get a bomb, they're gonna get a nuclear weapon, we gotta do something, right? It just seems kind of like random in a way. Well, I decided to look into what kind of evidence there was. And I did find some really interesting things out. The International Atomic Energy Agency was formed under Eisenhower after he gave a speech called Atoms for Peace. I think there are about 15 or 16 countries that have nuclear weapons, and they wanted to keep it that way. So under the United Nations, they formed the IAEA. They've only had 6 directors general. They're not completely under the UN. The IAEA couldn't find evidence of weapons of mass destruction. Well, the IAEA had just finished a disarmament of Iraq that had begun in the early 90s and ended in 1998. After that Gulf War, we did a disarmament. So all uranium, all materials, any components were removed. And they actually do have ways of verifying through instruments how much uranium has been enriched. When you enrich uranium more than 60%, that means, I just found out, that it is not for peaceful purposes. However, you still haven't made the components for a weapon. Iran has not, allegedly, but it only takes 3 weeks, according to the head of the IAEA. The current head is Rafael Grossi. And the governing council of the IAEA, which works together closely with the UN Security Council, which has permanent members, including Russia, China, and the United States, they voted to censure or to discipline Iran for being in breach of the charter of the IAEA, as well as the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which was signed in 1968 by the then leader of Iran, I believe the Shah, the king, Reza Pahlavi, who was deposed in the Islamic Revolution by the Ayatollah Khomeini, who is now deceased. Now it's Khamenei, who is supreme leader, who is also an Ayatollah. These swings from extreme to extreme, given what we've learned about Reza Pahlavi and his secret police, are not obviously conducive to any kind of normalcy in the international community. Now, I just think the fact that there was actually a censure of Iran, and Iran's leaders are saying, we're not building a weapon, but they're also telling that agency, but we do have factions of our government that really, really want to. That is concerning. What would I do? I don't know. All I know is this looks much more like a textbook case of what a president would need to deal with regarding nuclear proliferation than the situation in 2003, which was manufactured by, it turns out later, an unnamed source talking about how, no, Saddam is actually trying to procure new uranium, yellow cake, says our unnamed source in Niger. And you can look that up, but it was then, acknowledged that this source was not very reliable and should probably not have been relied on for the entire reason for going to war, circumventing the IAEA and its then leader, Mohammed al-Baradei, and doing a preemptive strike. I think it's a lot different. President Trump has very few choices in this very difficult situation. And by the way, Israel did not sign the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, but it is widely believed that they do have weapons. So does Pakistan and India and the other usual suspects. So it's a very difficult situation. I was actually surprised. This isn't just random, and they do have ways of knowing these things. So 3 weeks. It takes 3 weeks to build a missile from after enriching uranium to 60%. And the amount of uranium, supposedly, that Iran has, according to the IAEA, is about 800 pounds, enough for about 10 bombs. Of course, I have to mention the possibility that the IAEA is compromised in some way. After all, your information is only as good as your organization. Let's wait and see, pray for the best, and hope that one day our world can really get behind the notion of atoms for peace.